So we wind up, one of the common things is we wind up with a bunch of money in the bank when we die instead of a bunch of memories and experiences when we die, right? And I'm trying to avoid, a lot of people put out books on how to get rich, and that's great because getting rich is part of it, but I want to make sure people live rich. Whether they're rich or not, whether they have money or not, I want them to live rich. And this is about deliberately and consciously thinking about the experiences you want out of life, planning for them and allocating them correctly.
Hey there, I am super excited. Today I have a new success interview for you from my Unleash Your Greatness Within podcast. Today it was my privilege to interview Bill Perkins, who wrote this new book titled Die with Zero.
You already know. My passion and my mission to help you unleash your greatness within. My heart goes out to the underdogs that's on their way. If you think you can go from good to great, okay, let's motivate. GreatnessWithin.com. TJ Hoisington. GreatnessWithin.com.
Okay, what does it mean to die with zero? That caught my attention. And so that's what this interview is all about, laying out the concepts in this book. And it may not be what you think. Okay, so who is Bill Perkins? He made his fortune as an energy trader. He's known for his glamorous lifestyle. He's noticed for his poker games, but he's also noticed for his charitable work. And let me tell you, it was great to have him on the Unleash Your Greatness Within podcast. And as you know, I get the opportunity of interviewing all types of high achievers, and Bill Perkins is one of them, the top of the top. And it's really been a great fortune to be able to interview best-selling authors and CEOs and thought leaders and celebrities and professional athletes and more. And Bill Perkins shows us in his book and in this interview what it means, financially even, what it means to live a fulfilling life, how to design your dream life with memories and experiences that pay you tenfold in dividends, right? You're gonna learn a lot in this interview about how to look at your world differently in terms of your finances and also serving the greater whole. Because, I asked him the question, hey, am I not supposed to leave anything for my kids? And of course, he addressed it in this interview and of course in the book, and it's not what you think. So, hey, check out the interview. Now, if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, hey, do me a favor, subscribe and make sure you click that notification bell. And also, if you are listening to this because you downloaded it off of Apple Podcasts, hey, do me a favor, subscribe and make sure you leave a little review, or at least at a minimum, a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. Now, without any further ado, let's jump right into the interview. Bill, welcome to the Unleash Your Greatness Within podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great to be on.
It's great to have you on. I've got your book here.
One reader. I got one reader. Yes.
You got one good reader right here. I'll tell you, Die with Zero and Bill. Let me tell you, it threw me off. One of the reasons I looked at it, my staff came to me and said, hey, do you want to take this interview? And I saw the information. I thought, I wonder if we're going to share some of the same values and so forth. But let me tell you something, and I want to let the audience know, as I read your book, and I did, and I went through it, I discovered you answered. Because one of my first questions, Bill, was, what about the kids? Okay, so we'll go there later. We'll go there later.
There's a whole chapter on that one.
Totally. So that was my thought. And you actually addressed it several times in different chapters of the book. And so right. I think we'll go there, but I just want to let the listeners know this, what a powerful book. And it is provocative in the way that gets you to look at your world differently and what matters most, if you will. So before we jump into the content of the book,
okay,
Bill, would you share with us some of your backstory? Come on, give us the goods.
Backstory. This is always the most difficult for me, but let's just start with the basics. I was born and raised in Jersey City, New Jersey.
Got it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I went to school at the University of Iowa. And that's mainly because my dad had went to the University of Iowa on football scholarship. I played the bench there on the University of Iowa Hawkeyes, but I am a Hawkeye.
Yeah.
I majored in electrical engineering, but I mainly chased co-eds around. I wasn't really that studious in school, but I do have an engineering degree.
Right.
And I left Iowa back to New York City to kind of make my mark in the world of finance. Now, making my mark back then was starting off as a screen clerk, a lowly assistant peon. But I worked my way up. I got lucky. I eventually moved to Texas. During deregulation, Texas was energy companies were looking for people who were familiar with options and derivatives and financial expertise, which I had gained by being an assistant peon and working my way up. Moved to Texas, got married, had kids, got divorced, got a girlfriend, still good friends with the ex-wife. And, I've been, along the way, I've learned a lot of things, made a zillion mistakes. I call myself a mistake-making machine.
Yep.
X2000. I'm like the new and improved version, not the old version. But, at least I'm a hard way learner. That means I learn from my mistakes. I don't learn from other people's mistakes. And I don't ever want to be in the category of having never learned. And that's, that's basically where I'm at right now. I've written a book based on my observations and experiences and trying to get other people to live a full life. But we can talk about that.
No, I love that. So I went on your Instagram. It's colorful and rich and just the content of it. So where did you build your, let's say, your fortunes or your success or whatever? What career path did you take?
I think I was once an over-the-counter broker in energy derivatives, but I always wanted to be a trader. And mainly because I felt that I would be more in control of my own destiny, just my thinking at the time. And so most of the money I've made has come from commodities trading. Guessing correctly which way energy prices are going to go, mainly natural gas and power.
Are you still doing that today, or are you out doing other things today? Because I'll tell you what, as I look at some things I found online, which is great, you're living the life of your dreams. So what does that look like?
Wow, the life of my dreams. I even though I wrote the book, I still have to sit down and think about, okay, get off autopilot. What is it you want? What does balance mean to you? What things do you want to happen? What experiences you don't want to have? What impact do you want to have on the world? And I have to constantly think about those things in order to have the best life I possibly could.
I love that. And you talk about that later in the book. And I thought, okay, here we go. Here's where we bring the values in play. You talk about, I noticed in the beginning of the book, you talk about priceless memories, and you started talking about your friend. And I think it'd be a good setup here with your friend. You were at a time, I think, making 16,000, 15,000.
16, 18. Yeah. It was changing. It was, I was making the type of money that you had to buy the bus pass in advance, and you had to, plan your life carefully, or else you weren't getting from point A to point B. And my good friend and roommate at the time, Jason Rufo, decided he was going to go backpacking through Europe, except he didn't have the money. So he was going to borrow it from a loan shark to go backpacking through Europe. And my head just exploded. I was like, what? Are you crazy?
Yeah.
I was so focused on like this career path, and you can't leave, and, climbing the ladder, and you're borrowing money to go where, and this doesn't make sense. You could do it later. Anyway, I vomited over this idea. And turns out after time that he was right. He was creating priceless memories at a time that those memories fit his life. See, backpacking through Europe right now doesn't fit me. Not that I couldn't do it, but my temperament has changed. I'm an oddball. I'm a little bougie because I've made money. So the connections and fun and the adventure that he'd have, I can't have. That period has passed me by. And it's too late. And so when I look at the fact that he borrowed money to give to his poor self, to have experiences that he could not have in the future, I think that he made the correct decision. And it's one of my regrets. One of my biggest regrets is not going with him and backpacking through Europe and having those experiences.
And you learned from that experience. You thought at the time, you wrote in the book something to the effect that, here he was talking about these stories that I could only dream about. Yeah, he had them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was the ultimate case of FOMO and memory dividend that he created that I missed out on, and I learned. It took a while. I mean, at first it was just like, oh wow, a fascination with the trip and learning about it, and who are these new friends you met in Italy that are coming over, and who's this girl you fell in love with, and tell me about this place, tell me about that place. This is before Google, where you could just search up and picture show up, and you had to actually go there. And so he had an adventure of a lifetime. Came back right in the same spot. His life was not discernibly different in terms of career-wise, et cetera. I mean, he had this debt that he had to pay back, which he eventually did. Yep. But he came back richer, right? Much richer. Yeah. They say travel is one of the few things where you can spend money on that actually makes you richer. Mm-hmm. And so he came back enriched, and I was bewildered about my decision process. Yeah. And it didn't hit me immediately, but over time, I came to realize why that was a correct decision.
Yeah, and you can see that in the book. So give us I think it would be a good place right now to give us a synopsis of the book, because you start from the beginning and you end up with all these ideas and strategies and so forth, and you have a unique view of the world. So what's the synopsis of the book?
I guess the book is basically about using all your resources during your lifetime so that you have the most fulfilling life you possibly can.
That's right.
Right? Yeah. And it's based on your choices. I don't tell people, hey, you should do this or you should do that. I'm saying whatever it is you want to do, think it through. Use all your resources to have those experiences. And one of the main caveats to that is think about when, because when is just as important as what, right? Because if you say, hey, I want to go heli skiing, my goal is to go heli skiing, right? The when is not 92, most likely, right? That's not the optimal time to go heli skiing.
Right.
It may be for one outlier out there. There's always an exception to the rule.
For sure.
But generally, and if you think about all the events you want to have in your life, life is like Jenga. Not Jenga, I would say Tetris. I don't know if anybody remembers that old game Tetris where you had to get the shapes and you get the high score. If you don't order the events of your life correctly, you don't get all the events in, or you don't get all the fulfillment, the maximum score, quote unquote.
Fulfillment score.
Yeah, fulfillment score, right?
Right.
And so this is what that book is about one, making sure you use all your resources to get everything that you possibly can out of life that you want.
Are you kind of an analytical guy? Is that your nature?
Generally, I like to try and quantify things, at least even estimate them so that we can balance and make decisions on what we want to do.
I love that, because in the book, you say over and over, deliberately this, or deliberately do this, or deliberately set your goals, deliberately think about. Don't just stay on autopilot. Just don't stay on the traditions of our parents, in the sense that how they talked about money and so forth. And my thought in looking at the book initially was, really, are you saying die with zero totality? And I discovered in reading the book, no, you're putting things in buckets, and you get to the buckets toward the end based on 5-year increments. I love that. Any thoughts about, because I think you've always, it seems like, as I read the book, which I need to do better at, is being the analytical guy, right? And thinking through things. I already am, but I'm just saying I can sense in you how you've structured a life which is satisfying, happy, and fulfilled. And you've timed things, and you teach in the book how to time things just right based on your triangles, right? You have time, money, and health, and those change at different times of your life. Anyway.
Right. At certain points of your life, the 3 resources available to you, as I point them out, are your time, your money, and your health. And at various points of your life, you have varying degrees of either health, money, or time, right? And each individual person is going to be different, right? But we try and look at everybody on the whole. But to look at these resources that you have, and we're very busy people. Like we have 1,000 distractions, 1,000 things trying to get our attention.
Sure. Yeah.
We've developed habits that have helped us, going to work every day, saving, etc. But if we stay in habit mode, we never really sit down and think deliberately what we want out of life and what experience we want during each period of our life. And if we don't do that, life just passes us by and we stay on habit mode or autopilot mode. So we wind up, one of the common things is we wind up with a bunch of money in the bank when we die instead of a bunch of memories and experiences when we die, right? And I'm trying to avoid, a lot of people put out books on how to get rich, and that's great because getting rich is part of it, but I want to make sure people live rich. Yeah. Whether they're rich or not, whether they have money or not, I want them to live rich. And this is about deliberately and consciously thinking about the experiences you want out of life, planning for them and allocating them correctly.
That's really powerful. I noticed early on, you have the equation between money and energy. Like there was a point where even when it came to your health, you would decide, I would look at the calories or whatever, and you say, no, that's not worth spending an hour on the treadmill. So
right.
I love that. That's a deliberate way of looking at how we're trading time and life energy for money. Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. Anybody knows me. I love chocolate chip cookies, and I'm a connoisseur. I don't know why, but it just is. And, but I also know that I need my health and I need to maintain a certain weight. And when I eat a cookie that's 400, 600 calories, it needs to taste pretty damn good for me to want to spend an hour on the treadmill to burn those extra 400 to 600 calories, right? And
that's
so
great.
Yeah. I constantly think of these trade-offs,
Yeah. You talk about meeting with Dr. Chris Rena. You said
Rena, yeah.
Oh, Rena, sorry, excuse me.
No
Thank you for that. And how he just pointed out, you got to write this book because you responded to him.
Oh yeah.
Basically my goal is to die with zero. And he goes, wow, this stuff is not being taught. You got to teach it. What was your experience with?
Yeah. So I've been having conversations for years with friends about dying with zero and how this was the rational way to live your life, right? In order to get the maximum out of it, and debating issues. And I went to Dr. Renner. He was, part of the health checkup as a psychological evaluation. He asked me, are you afraid of running out of money before you die? And I said, well, I hope to die with zero money. And so I went into the whole spiel about why. Yeah. And he goes, and I really was focused on writing an app, like, something to calculate on how much to spend each day. But he was like, no, you need to write the book. You need to get going on the book first, get the message out. And it was true because the people that I had been talking with about this were profoundly impacting. I got a lot of gratitude and a lot of just self-worth and purpose out of people coming back to me, be like, wow, that conversation we had, it changed my life and I'm doing X, or this is better because of Y. Those things are, for me, very, very satisfying. And I felt a book would be the best way to get it out to the most people and have them have a better life or a more satisfying life.
And I agree with you. A book is a great way to do that. And the great thing about a book, as Jim Rohn taught me many years ago, is a book is immortal, right? It will live beyond. It's a way of you leaving your legacy. But I'm with you 100%, Bill, that the goal in life is not to just have a job. The goal in life is not just to end up at the end of your life when you can't use it with a bucket full of money. The goal is to live your dream life. You'll know in most of my writings and so forth, I talk about a dream life, and that is designing a life around your gifts, your talents, your intelligences, your potentials, and your desires, and those things that bring satisfaction to you, and live purposely. And I'm with you. Most people are not. They're coasting. And I learned early on that coasting implies that you're heading downhill. And so you have to be deliberate with how you're spending your money and so forth. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah. I mean, the people on my circle and other people around, we're like young and we're like, I want to do this. I want to do X. I want to travel here. I want to travel X, Y, and Z. And so I'm going to go get a job. And that's going to provide me survival, the first experience I want. Right. And then the money I make from that, I'm going to have all these other experiences on top of survival. But we get good at our job, we keep grinding, we get addicted to the number on a piece of paper, and we keep running like a hamster on the wheel, thinking we're going to get more cheese. But we never eat the cheese. You know what I mean? We get disconnected for the reasons why we went to work in the first place. And the abstract of money, as opposed to the concrete experiences you want to have, become the goal, when the experiences and the rich life should be the goal, right? This was just a method to get to that goal. Correct. And that's why in the book, where if you don't have money, there are ways to have many, many positive life experiences. You have a choice.
That's right.
Right? Even without the money, right?
That's correct.
Right? As a matter of fact, I know many people who are, in my opinion, are having a much less fulfilling life than people with 1/1000th of the money. 1/1000th, 1/10,000, you know? They've essentially become hamsters who run in a wheel for no cheese.
Do you think it's just because maybe it's become a habit, or they just weren't taught how important experiences were and sharing those experiences? And you tell the story later on about your assistant that worked with you on writing this book and so forth, and how she heard of a lady named Virginia,
right,
who ended up struggling many of her years, only to, when her mom passed away, all the siblings got about an inheritance of $138,000 or something like that. And she made the point, I'm going off memory here, but she made the point in the interview that she had with your staff or whatever it was, that I wish mom would have done it earlier, because it would have helped us back here. It wasn't,
Yeah. So one of the things, I point into a point in the book is that your ability to consume experiences generally deteriorates with age.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I can't play football now. I'll pull a hamstring by the 30-yard line. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So the memory of playing football is actually greater than the actual playing football right now. Right. For me. And so you for every human being, there is a ideal period where you can convert money into experiences.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Not saying that you don't enjoy things later on in life. I'm just saying that the value of those experiences, the enjoyment from them, is diminished relative to that optimal time. Right.
Yep.
And so we have, getting to Virginia with her mom, and people saying, well, I have money and I'm saving it to give it to my kids. I'm like, if on average, that would be around 60.
Yeah, right.
So you want to give them to your fully grown adults. I can tell you that people may debate when's the proper age to leave an inheritance to your kids or leave a gift to your kids. But I'm sure one thing: it's not 60, it's not 59, right? And so you want to time it so it has the maximum impact on their life, that they have the maximum ability to convert the money or whatever resources you're giving them into positive life experiences, right? Because remember, the money we earn is to acquire experiences. Number one, be survival, right? Yep. That would be number one. And number two is anything else you choose, right? And so, and people's ability to convert money into experiences declines as they age. Just think about when you're on your deathbed. It doesn't matter if I dump $1 trillion on you, it does nothing, right? Correct. And so as you work backwards, right, there's an optimal point. And then goes the other way, right? There's like that graph, right? When you were a baby, I can throw $1 trillion in your crib and you'd be suffocating it, right? Like it doesn't, right? And so life follows this kind of curve where you are able to utilize cash, right, or money or resources, and convert it into what I call positive life experiences, right? And so as a parent, I'm thinking about, okay, when will my kids be mature enough, both mentally and physically, okay, in order to take this inheritance, right, and convert it into experiences? When will have the maximum impact on them, right?
Right.
And so I have my age range, and I know it's not when I die. At least if I live a long life, right?
Right.
It's not when I die. And I think many people are making that mistake that, I'm saving money for my kids later. I'm like, no. You're actually, by pushing a date far away, you're actually reducing the value of their inheritance. Because you think about this, you think, well, the returns on my money is doing X, Y, and Z, and I'm able to give them more experiences. But what they forget is, one, experiences have a return too, right? Yeah. When you go out to dinner with your friends, when you meet other people, you tell past experiences you have. And every time you recall those experiences, it pays a dividend, just like dividends from the bank. And you get that dividend is experience in itself, and you get to enjoy it. That you didn't have to pay for it because you already paid for it by consuming the original experience. So when you hit the game-winning home run and you told that story, I don't know, 3,000 times, you really got a great return on your investment on playing on that team, right? Whatever the fees were, whatever the hard work and the hours that you put in, right, you're getting a return, which often beats the market return. And so when you're comparing these two things, right? Because think about it, like if you put money in the bank, you're like, I want to delay gratification. I want to have more money later so I can have experiences later, right? So you put the money in the bank and let's say it doubles in 10 years. So now instead of taking one cruise, you can take 2 cruises, right? Mm-hmm. At certain ages, that might make sense. If you're 20, 2 cruises later on, you're healthy, you can do it. If I'm 70, I am not deferring. I'm not deferring one cruise, giving up one cruise now for 2 cruises when I'm 80. 1, I may not be here. And 2, my ability to enjoy that cruise, my ability to walk around, my ability, everything is diminished.
That's right.
Right. And I've missed out on all the friendships, the experiences, and the memory dividends associated with the original cruise. And this is just a way, you know, it's not exact science, but it's a way to think about, hey, why am I delaying gratification? What am I delaying gratification for? And is it right for me to have an experience now or later?
Yeah. And you say, hey, what do you say? You say about delayed gratification, you acknowledge, but this quote, but the sad, let me pick this up here. But the sad truth is that too many people delayed gratification for too long or indefinitely.
Correct.
Like I'm a big believer in the law of the harvest, which is you reap what you sow. That's number 1. Number 2 is you reap more than you sow. Like if you put energy forth, you're going to get more in return rather than sitting on your couch hoping for results to show up, right? And then you have delayed gratification, that you can't cram the harvest. You can't say, and I know this is different than what you're teaching, so I'm just pointing the distinction out. You can't say, well, I've got to have the corn to the buyer by Monday, but I haven't started growing the corn until Friday. There is delayed it doesn't work. You can't grow corn over a weekend. Correct. What you're saying is stop delaying these great, rich experiences that you could be having with your family, increasing those relationships, sharing those experiences with your family.
Yeah, your ability to convert whatever resources you have diminishes over time. And so we have to be conscious of that, about how and when we choose to consume our resources.
What do you Go ahead.
And just each person is going to have a different answer, right? A guy who's in shape and is going to live to 125 is going to have, hey, I can consume and these same experiences later, it makes sense to delay. For many of us, it doesn't make sense, and sometimes it does make sense to delay and save, et cetera. But we need to be off autopilot, because if we're on autopilot, that means we are not thinking, we're acting out of habit, right? And we're not making a deliberate decision. And so if you sit down and you clear your mind and you're like, yes, I should be saving all this money till later because I'm going to go hella skiing at 92, that's the right decision, right? Yeah. But make sure you're off autopilot and you're deliberately thinking of it.
What do you say if someone sees your book, and what would you say to the person that sees your book and go, what? I'm supposed to go all the way to 0? Well, I don't know when I'm going to die. So don't I have to save a bunch of money in case, you run a marathon, you realize you got another marathon to go, kind of a thing. What would be your thought around that? Because I know you've talked to your friends about it.
Well, the first thing I would say, it's die with 0 regrets. And one way we do that is die with 0 money, right? And you have a very, very valid point. Like, well, how do I perfectly die with 0? And what about these risks? And what if I lose a job?
Yeah.
We should definitely die with 0 does not necessarily mean don't allocate and save for certain risks and bad eventualities. But what we tend to find out is people kind of quasi play their own insurance agent with a customer of one, which is very inefficient. There's a section of the book where it says you're not a good insurance agent, right? And essentially, if you think that by your saving to insure against all these calamities, there's actually products and services out there that do it better than you, right? Mm-hmm. They use the law of large numbers and many customers, et cetera. And you can look at the returns on an insurance profile. It's like 4, 5, 8%, right? And so even if it was, even at that margin, you trying to save and beat the insurance company, right?
Right.
It's just horribly inefficient. And so by delaying experiences that you could have because you're insuring against calamity in the future, being your own insurance, you're doing it inefficiently and wasting more of your hours of your life than you should be, right?
And that,
like nobody goes, well, I bought my wife a wedding ring for $1,000, but I'm gonna save another $1,000 just in case she loses the wedding ring, right?
Right.
That'd be absurd, right? You'd pay the $5 or whatever the fee was to insure your wedding, right? We do this all the time, right? So in other areas of your life, you're not like, well, I'm gonna save like the entirety of what I think my medical costs would be.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's fair.
And go live, right? Like you don't do that. You buy the insurance, right? And so, I'm not here to push insurance products or annuities or stuff, but what I'm here to say is that there are tools out there to mitigate the risks that you're not willing to take. Some of us are willing to take the risk of, hey, having zero before we die, right?
Right.
Some of us are willing to take certain risks. But for those of us who are not, it's incumbent upon us to go out, see the most efficient way we can mitigate the risk that we're not willing to accept so that we get to live the fullest life possible.
Right. And another distinction it took me getting through the book, and you eloquently talk about it in the book, is what about the kids? Because as I was going through, I'm thinking, okay, let's create these experiences. Let's remember them. Let's build these relationships. Let's do this. Let's do that. But am I not supposed to leave anything for my kids? And you actually say you get frustrated when people say that.
Yeah, I do. So like I've been blathering this stuff for years, right, amongst my friends, right? And one of the most common jokes, well, that sounds great for somebody who doesn't have kids. Well, yeah, if you don't care about your children. And when I say die with zero money, I mean your money, not your kids' money.
Right.
Money that you intend to live for your kids, it's theirs, right? And quite frankly, if you haven't separated it out and put it into a trust or an account for them, right, it's at risk, right? You could one day make a mistake, hit somebody, get sued, and it's gone. The kid's money is gone, right? There's other ways. So once you think about the money you're going to give kids, whether you have it now or you're saving a certain percent and moving it into an account for them, you now have freed yourself. Your kids are taken care of. The money is set aside from them. We're not talking about spending their money or even putting it at risk by some calamity where you get sued and the money disappears, right?
Right.
And now you can focus on dying with zero, because I'm talking about your money, not the kids' money. And so when people say, well, I'm having money for the kids and I'm going to give the money to the kids, it's sort of random, right? It's like, well, it's a random date in the future when they die, right? They haven't really thought about it. It's random people because who knows which heirs will be alive, right? It's unfortunate, but that happens,
yep.
Right? And it's a random amount,
right?
Like how much is that when you die, et cetera, right? And so I really coach people to be deliberate. Mm-hmm. Separate out the money you're going to give your kids, whether it's a sum right now or it's a certain amount of money per year that you're putting in, et cetera. Have that idea in your head so that now we can focus on optimizing your life and theirs at the same time.
Love it. Great. Thank you for clarifying that. Because I think that's a valuable piece right there. I have 4.
Yeah, it's a valuable piece. And so the die with zero way is really pro kids, right? It's pro optimizing their life, right? Because you can't optimize, everybody has an optimal period of which to consume experience or an optimal curve of which to consume experiences. And we want to make sure our kids get that optimal experience. And I want you to have that optimal experience. But we can't do that if your head's in a clutter and you're going, well, I don't have money for the kids and this and that. You know what I mean? It's like, let's separate it out. Let's deliberately think about it. Let's really think about the kids, right? Let's not just pay lip service to it. Yeah. And let's go ahead and go do the die with zero way and separate it out for them. And so you can go on and live the full adventure that you were meant to do.
Love it. Love it. You say, give your children whatever you have allocated to them before they die. I just want to button down what you just said. Allocate it, think through it ahead of time, put it into whatever bucket you're going to put it in.
Yeah.
And let that be there for them. When I was building my business 20 years ago, I was very thankful for my wife's grandma. who came into a sizable inheritance, and she decided early on just to help us with a down payment on a home. And I will always be thankful for that. I'll tell you why, Bill. Because when I left the Tony Robbins organization, I was a speaker for him 20 years ago. I thought I was going to go out there and make my business take off overnight.
Right.
My Utah home was being rented out at the time, so I couldn't go there. So I called my parents and I said, hey, listen, I've quit the Tony Robbins organization. Is it okay if I move into the basement of your house? And with my little family, I had 2 kids at the time, little family. And they said, of course. I said, Mom, Dad, I'll only be there for 2 months. And those 2 months turned into 5 years. And in our darkest moment during those 5 years, I was able to write my first book, which became a bestseller. But right before then, one thing that helped us was my grandma received her grandma received an inheritance that just gave us a little bit to help us get started on getting the down payment for the house. I was and will be today forever thankful for that gesture of acknowledgement to the principles that you're teaching, Bill. That there's a time and a place for it.
A perfect example of the timing of a gift, of an inheritance, right?
Exactly.
Perfect timing, right? Like here it is like, this is when it's going to have maximum impact. What would that do for you now? Exactly. And so, you know, and sometimes, you know, when it's a case of a parent and a kids, this is a grandmother to kids, but in parents and kids, it's way too late, right? It's like, I got bad hips. Like, thanks for the trip to Paris, but I can't walk the streets, you know, or et cetera. And you know, not that it won't be enjoyable. It's just not at maximum value, maximum enjoyment level. And so thank you for that story. That was definitely a great example of what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah, exactly. And I see that and I share that, right? It's my goal as a parent, just to be a little personal here. My goal as a parent is to give my children not a free handout in the sense of, I don't expect you to be responsible, or I don't expect you to have ingenuity and ambition. I teach my kids ambition is the key, right? You've got to have ambition. But in the process of them building their businesses and doing things that they want to try out, I want to be a part of supporting that, not waiting and saying, do it on your own, catch up to me in 40 years from now.
Right. I'm with you. I mean, my goal is to raise strong, independent women with an ability to navigate the world. And to the extent that I'm going to give them anything, I want to make sure, I want to think clearly about when that will have the maximum impact on their lives. Right. So I'm thinking about the arc of their life and their health. That's right. And the things that we're going to go on. And so that that timing of that gift. And some people are like, no, my kid's going to get nothing. That's, you know, I understand. I'm not here to tell you how to treat
That's right. That's right.
You know what I mean? But the timing of that gift is uber important. And I am very convinced, and I will say, is not the day you die. That is not the time to be giving any kind of gift to your kids, right? And all those resources give your kids. It's much earlier.
You know, as I was reading your book, every question, I said this in the beginning, every question I had, just based on the title, were answered, I felt like, with reason. I think you really brought some reason. You even detail it somewhere in here. Let's see if I can flip through the image real quick to show the audience.
I love this.
Oh yeah, no. Hold on. This will be good. I love this little diagram that you put together. Here we go. So, and we'll show an image of it later. We'll superimpose it or something. But that image right there, I thought was really a new way to look at the world, right? Between 25 and 30 years old, here's some activities that you could do to create memories. When you're 40 to 45, here's all the way up to 75 years plus. And I think it's about, like you said, it's about slowing down, kind of allocating things, organizing your life really is what you're doing, right?
Right.
You either plan to succeed, or you don't plan, and therefore you plan to fail. And so it's about planning things ahead of time so that you can succeed. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that concept is one of my most powerful concepts or tools that people can do, because a lot of times, we're not thinking about what we want out of life and when we want out of life, right? Everybody has a kind of a bucket list, right?
That's right.
But it's not like, 2 days before you die, you're going to be able to run around the world and do this bucket list, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And certain experiences that you want to have, fall in different time buckets of your life. That is the optimal time to have it, right?
Yeah.
And so, even though I was writing the book, when I went through this exercise myself, it was difficult because I myself am on autopilot a lot of the times, right? And I have to think, next 5 years, what experiences do I want to have between 45 and 50, 50 to 55, 55 to 60, What do I think I'll like? What will I be able to do? Where am I with my health, and what does my health decline look like? What is my estimated death date? And so as you start dropping in the experiences, right, in these buckets, you start to understand what you're saving for.
Yeah.
And how much you need to save, right? So we know survival is always in there, right? We're always
the base level.
The base level. We're always saving for survival, right? The day we can't work and to the day we die. That's just the bare minimum. But then we layer on the experiences, and then we're like, okay, well, I do want to do this, so I need this amount of money for the cruise. It's Silver Seas cruise, at 70. Yeah. I need, the opera money here. I like to play chess. Doesn't cost that much. But look, as we get closer and closer to, say, what I call the golden years of our life, between 45 and 60, we realize a whole bunch of activities are in those buckets, right? Like a whole bunch of things. And we realize that, wow, our spending looks like this kind of curve here, and it actually goes down as we get older. And the statistics show that even with rising healthcare costs, seniors tend to spend less and less money.
Yes.
And I argue, people are like, well, why is that, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, because they can't.
Yeah.
The ability, life is movement, right? We're like I talk in the beginning of the book, right? We're energy processing units.
Yes, we are.
Things that process fuel, they're called machines. Your cars, your computers, they process electricity. Things that process food, right? They're called animals, living things. That's right. Us. And the benefit of that is movement. When we process that energy, we get movement. First is the movement of the neurons in our head so that we can think. And then for those neurons to fire to our body so we can move. We've invented machines so that we can move even further and faster over our lifetimes, right? And so as you deteriorate, your ability to process energy and move deteriorates. Yeah. Your ability to consume experiences and enjoy experiences deteriorates. And so we naturally consume less as we get older, both, from attitude and just ability.
Yeah.
And so, but you don't have to take my word for that. You can just follow this exercise, start dropping things in the buckets. You realize, wow, there seems to be a lot of stuff here, but not that much here. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying you won't be doing any things, and I'm not saying you won't be enjoying your life. I'm just saying that if you could step back and look at the total arc of your life from cradle to grave, and God said, hey, here's all these experiences, right? You can have all of them, but you just got to get the order right. You know what I mean? That's the problem of life, right? And that's the thing that's the question we're ignoring, right? Because you can have all these experiences, but we got to bucket them in correctly, right?
Agreed. And I think that's wise to do. And,
yes.
And I would say from a spiritual place, although this podcast is not a spiritual in its nature, a spiritual podcast, but I think the experiences we have in our life is really the one thing we can take on into the next life, right? I mean, we carry those experiences. That's just TJ's belief, but I don't think we give enough credit to the experiences. I learned from Brian Tracy many years ago, best-selling author. He said to me one time, things are soulless. And I thought, as I was reading your book, I thought, things are soulless. It's about the experiences, it's about the memories.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And so people will say, we're using experiences. I just want to get this across that
for sure.
That experiences covers everything. Your charitable experiences, your charitable giving, your hedonistic experiences, you're going to the club with glow sticks to you're in Africa helping people with an irrigation system, right? It encompasses all of them.
Right.
And so, you know, these experiences that you have, these connections, these things that you do, these are the things that you're going to retire on. You don't retire on money, you retire on memories. And what lives on is the memories of you and your impact you had and the experience, those experiences that you've had. And so I want to make sure that people get the maximum that they possibly can out of their life, live the most fullest, wildest, craziest adventure of their choosing.
That's right.
Okay. And I want them to get the order right so they can pack them in, right? I want to help them play the game of life Tetris and get the high score that they possibly can.
Wow, that's great. Well, let me tell you, as we wind down here, you've written a powerful book, and Die with Zero. Hey, go check it out. Plan your life thoughtfully and deliberately. That's Bill Perkins's Perkins' message. And I tell you, you did a good job. I love all the stories in it. I love you. Not only do you just have stories, you have your opinions, but not only do you just have your opinions about the way to look at the world, you actually have research in it. You dive a lot into different areas of research that show the numbers on what you can expect. So I think that's really powerful.
Thank you. Yeah. I think it's important to show people that like the data supports the thesis, right?
That's right.
It's, you know, I'm not trying to like backwards fit into it, but I want to show that, hey, this is what's happening out here in our world. This is what people, those who save too much. These are the people, even without money, who aren't making conscious decisions about things they can do with their money, health, and time. And so I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope you've got value out of it.
It's a good reminder of some things.
An even greater adventure for the rest of your life.
That's right.
And I hope those out there who read it or at least hear some of the stories and talks will take it to heart, and it helps them.
I hope so. And you did a great job. So tell me, how can people get your book? Where would you point them to get the book?
Well, the book is, you can pre-order it right now. It's on all major Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, etc. But you can go to the website, diewithzerobook.com. It has all the links, and you can go ahead and order from your favorite bookseller. But it's going to be everywhere. And if you're an audiobook person and you don't mind my voice, I really don't like my own voice.
Did you read it? You did it on your own?
You will hear me blather about my book on the audiobook if you like audiobooks.
All right. So all right. There. Give the website one more time. That is diewithzerobook.com. Diewithzerobook.com. Hey, Bill.
Yes.
Thank you for being on the Greatness, Unleash Your Greatness Within podcast. It was great to have you.
It's been awesome. I really appreciate you hearing me blather about it. Thanks.
No, it's great. Thank you.